Well, the war in the Middle East is not just a distant headline, it is a direct challenge to the budgets of American families. The conflict, which began on February 28, 2026, involves the United States, Israel, Iran. This has immediate and severe consequences for the global economy. The reason is simple and geographic. Much of the world's oil must travel through a narrow waterway called the Strait of Hormuz. When that route is threatened or closed, the flow of oil slows to a trickle. This disruption sends shockwaves from international markets directly to your local gas station and grocery store. The conflict has already driven oil prices up by over 40%. It has effectively halted maritime traffic through the strait. As a result, the cost of fuel, food, and many basic goods is rising sharply. We will trace this economic chain reaction step by step. It starts with a geopolitical crisis. It ends with a tighter squeeze on the household budgets of the poor and the middle class. The core issue is a supply disruption. The world runs on oil, and a significant portion of that oil has suddenly been taken off the market. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most important oil transit choke point. It is a narrow channel of water connecting the Persian Gulf to the open sea. Normally, about 1/5 of the entire global oil supply passes through this strait every day. Tankers carry crude oil from major producers like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, and Kuwait to markets all over the world. The global economy's reliance on this single vulnerable waterway cannot be overstated. Following the start of the US-Israel war with Iran, the strait has been effectively closed. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued warnings against any vessels passing through. These warnings were backed by attacks and the clear and present danger of a wider conflict. Shipping companies responded by halting all traffic. At one point, over 150 ships were anchored outside the strait. Tanker traffic, the lifeblood of the oil market, dropped to nearly zero. This event has been described as the largest single disruption to the global energy supply in modern history. The basic law of supply and demand takes over. A huge portion of available supply was suddenly removed. Refineries faced shortages. Traders reacted instantly to scarcity. They bid prices higher and higher. Brent crude, the international benchmark, surged above $100 per barrel. This is not just a number on a financial news channel. It is the wholesale price that determines the cost of gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Iran has threatened to maintain the closure, with one official even warning of $200 oil. The global oil market is deeply interconnected. A disruption in one critical artery causes pressure everywhere else. Even oil produced in Texas or North Dakota becomes more expensive because it is sold on a global market where supply has been drastically reduced. For most Americans, the first and most noticeable impact is at the gas station. The price you pay is directly tied to the global price of crude oil. When crude surges, gasoline prices follow, often within days. According to AOAA, the national average has already jumped to $3.58. This is a 22% increase from just 1 month ago. In the last week alone, some reports show a 51 cents per gallon jump. Consider a 2-car family, 15 gallons each, once a week. A 64 cents per gallon increase adds over $19 weekly, nearly $80 a month. For most people, commuting, school, and doctor visits are essential. The higher price is a tax on daily life. The pain does not stop at the gas pump. Higher fuel costs quickly translate into higher food prices. The entire food supply chain runs on diesel. From farms to distribution centers to warehouses to your supermarket, milk to bread and everything between. When diesel costs rise, shippers charge more. Retailers pass it on to consumers. This chain reaction is already underway. While full effects take weeks, the process has begun. Conflict drives up oil, higher oil raises fuel, higher fuel lifts transport costs, and everything that moves becomes more expensive. The initial shock at the gas pump is the first wave. The second wave arrives in the grocery aisles. This is not theoretical. It is the lived experience of millions trying to stretch paychecks further. We will look at facts clearly and explain the 2026 oil squeeze calmly and directly. The economic impact extends far beyond the gas pump and the grocery store. Oil and natural gas are not just fuels, they are critical raw materials for industry. One of the most important links is fertilizer. Natural gas is key to nitrogen-based fertilizers like urea. Roughly 1/3 of global fertilizer trade transits the Strait of Hormuz. With that route blocked, prices are soaring just as spring planting begins in the northern hemisphere. At the New Orleans hub, urea surged about 43%, from $475 to $680 per metric ton. Farmers either absorb costs and see profits vanish, or pass them on via higher crop prices. Corn, wheat, and soybeans will likely rise, pushing up bread, cereal meat, and processed foods. The fertilizer shock threatens a second, more severe wave of food inflation. Beyond agriculture, manufacturing and utilities are hit hard. Factories use energy to power, heat, and cool facilities. Many rely on natural gas and petroleum products. As energy costs rise, producing cars, appliances, clothes, nearly everything gets more expensive. Businesses face the same squeeze. Accept lower profits or raise prices. Utility bills for heating and electricity are likely to increase. Many power plants run on natural gas, which often moves with oil. This is why an oil spike acts like a tax on all activity. It slows growth and pushes up inflation, the classic setup for stagflation. Early models suggest global GDP falls and inflation rises if disruption persists. All of this began with the closure of a single strait. The first to fall. How higher costs hit low-income households. When gasoline and food prices rise, it does not affect everyone equally. Low-income households bear the heaviest burden. They spend a much larger share on necessities. A family earning $30,000 may spend 30% on food and 10% on transportation. A 20% increase in these costs is a devastating blow. There is very little room to cut back when your budget is already dedicated to survival. For these families, there are no easy choices. They already buy the cheapest brands and drive the most efficient used car they can afford. When gas jumps 50 cents, they cannot switch to an expensive EV. Money gets pulled from other critical areas: less fresh produce, more processed foods, delaying a doctor visit or skipping medication, falling behind on rent or utilities, risking eviction or a shutoff. The lack of a financial cushion is the critical vulnerability. An unexpected few $100s can trigger crisis. To cope, many turn to high-interest credit cards or payday loans, temporary relief that deepens the hole. This is why an oil price spike acts as a regressive tax, taking a much larger bite from poor households than wealthy ones. Public services they rely on can also suffer if revenues fall. Schools, transit, and clinics face cuts, removing support just when it is needed most. A wealthy household may be annoyed by higher gas prices. A low-income household can be pushed over the edge. The stress is immense, choosing between feeding children, keeping a roof overhead, and getting to work. The slow squeeze. Middle-class budgets under pressure. At first, a middle-class household may seem fine. Jobs intact, income stable, bills paid. Beneath the surface, the budget tightens. 80 more for gas, 50 more for groceries, a higher heating bill. The money has to come from somewhere, usually monthly savings. Discretionary income, money left after necessities, shrinks. That's the money for building a future. It funds a down payment, retirement contributions, college, home repairs, vacations, even replacing a failing appliance. Now those get delayed. Your paycheck buys less, anxiety rises, big decisions get postponed. A new car is delayed despite breakdowns. Home projects stall. If the job market weakens, pressure compounds. Hiring freezes, delayed raises, wage growth, lagging cost of living. Expenses up, earning power down, the middle class is squeezed from both sides. Over time, this slow, grinding pressure erodes household stability across millions of homes. Today carries a stagflation risk. Prices rise while growth slows. Businesses turn cautious. The result is falling real income and a pervasive sense of being stuck. The current crisis is not without historical precedent. In 1973, an oil embargo led by Arab nations caused the price of oil to quadruple. In the US, there were long gas lines, fuel rationing, and a sharp downturn. It showed the dependence of modern economies on stable Middle Eastern oil. The 1979 Iranian Revolution shock compounded the damage. The result, stagflation, high inflation and high unemployment. The Fed raised rates to historic highs, curbing inflation but triggering a deep early 1980s recession. Lessons for today. Supply disruptions become broad pain via gas, food, manufacturing costs, pushing general inflation. Policymakers face hard choices with trade-offs. Today, we are more energy efficient and the US produces more oil. But global interconnection keeps vulnerability high. Some lessons appear overlooked. Markets reacted strongly to this conflict. History warns, a regional war can escalate into a global economic crisis that hurts ordinary people most. Conflict disrupts energy, energy lifts prices, prices hit household budgets, and policy choices determine who bears the pain. In response to the sudden spike in oil prices, the US and partners acted. The International Energy Agency agreed to release 400 million barrels, the largest in its 50-year history. The United States will contribute 172 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Goal: offset the disruption from the Strait of Hormuz. Not a perfect or immediate fix. Full US delivery takes about 120 days. The release starts next week, but full effect takes months. That creates a dangerous gap when prices can remain elevated, hurting consumers and businesses. Reports say senior aides were caught off guard by the speed and severity of the market reaction. The rushed announcement aimed to reassure markets, a gamble to stop prices from spiraling higher. Strategic reserves are finite, a buffer, not an endless supply. 400 million barrels sounds big, but the world uses about 100 million per day. Hormuz normally moves about 20 million barrels daily. The release covers roughly 20 days of shortfall. If the blockade lasts weeks or months, reserves won't be enough. They are a first line of defense, not a long-term fix. Inside the administration, tapping reserves signals urgency and a scramble to contain broader economic fallout. Meanwhile, households face weeks of elevated prices before additional barrels reach the pumps. As we stand today, on March 14, 2026, the global economy is at a crossroads. The path forward depends on the duration and intensity of the conflict. There are two primary scenarios. First, a rapid de-escalation. Diplomacy succeeds, operations wind down, and Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz. If this happens within weeks, damage is contained. The price surge becomes a temporary spike. Markets stabilize, tankers move freely, strategic releases accelerate normalization. For families, the pain is sharp but short-lived. Gas prices and food pressures ease. Stagflation risk recedes. Second, a prolonged disruption. Weeks or months of closure make high prices the new normal. Emergency reserves prove insufficient. The world faces a structural supply deficit. Prices remain elevated, potentially pushing toward $200. Inflicting lasting damage. Recession risks mount in Europe and East Asia, with meaningful harm to the US, savings wiped, living standards eroded, the middle class squeezed harder. Low-income families face a desperate struggle. The choice between these paths rests with political and military leaders, not economists or consumers. The 2026 oil squeeze demonstrates a fundamental truth: global events have local consequences. A war thousands of miles away can impact every American family, with the poor and middle class most exposed. They have the smallest cushion to absorb rising fuel, food, and housing costs, while the wealthy and corporations can hedge. Watch daily reports on military activity and shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Any de-escalation or resumed tanker transit is a strong positive sign. Track benchmark prices, Brent and WTI crude. Consistent declines suggest easing fears. Check local gas stations and grocery aisles, real-world indicators for your community. Follow national and local job reports. A weakening labor market signals deeper problems. Small steps can help now. Reduce non-essential driving, plan meals and compare prices. Know community programs for utility help and food support. These don't solve the crisis but provide control and relief. This is more than oil prices. It's about economic vulnerability. Wars abroad become class issues at home. The coming days and weeks will be critical. A brief, painful episode, or the start of a long, difficult period. The risk is clear and unevenly distributed. Those with the least buffer suffer first and worst. My read is this: the most realistic U.S. danger is not an instant collapse, but a layered squeeze that hits household budgets first. If the strait normalizes in 2 to 3 weeks, oil could settle lower. If disruption lasts 4 to 6 weeks, prices stay closer to 100. If conflict drags on, Americans face a stagflation-style threat: slower growth, sticky inflation, weak hiring, and rising anger. This shock lands on pre-existing fractures: slowed growth, above-target inflation, weakening hiring, and pressure on public services. History shows external shocks sharpen blame politics. But the structural problem remains. Ordinary Americans live with too little buffer. The deeper lesson is blunt. Wars abroad become class issues at home. The wealthy hedge, corporations pass on costs, governments use reserves. The poor and middle class pay first, at the pump, the grocery aisle, the power bill, and in the labor market. Stay focused on the signals that matter, advocate for policies that cushion households, and prepare practical defenses. The conflict may be far away, but its consequences are already at our doorstep.